The Switch 2 might have stick drift. But before you start crying and asking for a refund, in this video, I'll be going over everything when it comes to the Switch 2 Joy-Con controllers. That being, how prone is it to stick drift, as well as what we could do to fix it. So let's get into it. If you guys didn't know already, iFixit did a full teardown of the Switch, including the Joy-Con 2s. And unfortunately, they found that the internal components of the Joy-Con 2s is almost exactly similar to the Joy-Con 1s when it comes to the analog sticks. Here is what they have to say when it comes to what they have found regarding the analog sticks. And I believe they're just talking more about the stick drift situation as a whole when it comes to it.
Stick drift has been a huge problem with other Switch models. One survey found that 40% of Switch owners had problems with their Joy-Cons drifting, and things didn't get any better with the Lite or OLED editions.
They do briefly explain what an analog stick does use, and then they show the component that is in both the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. And this is the concerning part. But they also go ahead and do mention that they are using a different kind of stick, not sensor, and why they can't use Hall effect as well.
Using Hall effect sensors in these sticks, which makes sense because the new magnetic attachment mechanism would interfere. But that wouldn't stop them from going with TMR, which is less susceptible to magnetic interference.
We'll get into TMR in a second, but I do want to touch on something he did just mention, that being why they couldn't use Hall effect sticks to begin with. Honestly, I've been thinking about this a lot. Why didn't they? Because legitimately, this was a big, massive concern for the Switch 1. And if they just said in a news article that they were using Hall effect sticks, I think everyone would have been a lot happier and a lot more relieved as well. I'm not an engineer or any sort of hardware person in general, but I think the main difference between an analog stick and Hall effect sticks is the Hall effect sticks use magnets, which are less susceptible to damage over time, which then could cause, the drifting that we do see in, the Switch 1. A lot of people were hoping for it going into the Switch 2, but it makes so much sense that the magnets on the side of the Switch might actually interfere with the Hall effect sticks in the Joy-Con. And we'd just be having drift all the time. It makes so much sense now why they didn't include Hall effect sticks inside the Joy-Con 2s. But they are using TMR, which is a slightly better analog stick than what they're using before. For example, I did a quick research on this Reddit thread on what is the main difference between Hall effect and TMR joysticks. TMR are lower power, less prone to interference, and are more precise. TMR sticks commonly come in 12-bit, most Halls are 8-bit. In actual gameplay, 12-bit TMR versus 12-bit Hall effect feels similar, but most Hall effects are not 12, while most TMR are 12. TMR allows more controller features due to less power constraints and often means a better latency, but too many variables to go into that. Basically, TMR is a little bit more precise and uses less power by using smaller magnets. Again, I'm no expert and I might be just giving you guys wrong information and I'm sorry about that, but that is what I was able to find regarding TMR versus Hall effect sticks. It is worth noting that one of the more common issues with the original Joy-Con was Joy-Con drift due to dust or small particles in contact with the internal sensors. And it seems like this has been mostly remedied in the Joy-Con 2 controllers. iFixit does a massive teardown guide of how to actually switch and here you could see the difference between the Switch 1 and the Switch 2 sensors. The one thing that actually senses the actual input.
Can't see, but we haven't yet met a potentiometer-based stick that's drift resistant. Solution? Wait for Google to release drift resistant TMR replacements.
Both of these sensors are, I believe, what they call potentiometer-based systems. And I'm gonna let them continue the video.
Durable material in the tracks or something else we can't see, but we haven't yet met a potentiometer-based stick that's drift resistant. So
if you're ever using potentiometers, it's not going to be 100% drift resistant, which doesn't mean that stick drift is 100% out of the picture. There was a pretty misleading video about stick drift when the Switch originally came out. And honestly, my first viewing of this, I could tell the stick was just misaligned. And I'm not someone that normally does a lot of repairs myself, But here, I'll let you guys give it a watch yourselves. But as you guys can see, this it's not drifting at all. It's just that center is off center. One good thing to note that the author of this video said, call Nintendo's customer service with no questions asked, they'll repair it. They did not ask for any additional information. So that is really great to hear. But that is basically everything I could find about sticks and stick drifts in the Nintendo Switch 2. Have you experienced any sort of drift at all? Let me know in the comment section down below. Sorry this video was kind of pretty negative, but you know, I thought an interesting video on stick drift would be fun. I'm Crafty1, and I'll see you guys later. Adios.